You're going for feedback from people. The worst thing that you can ask somebody is, how does my mix sound? Wrong question. What you want to be asking is, how does this song grab you? Welcome to Kush After Hours. My name's Gregory Scott. Tonight, I want to talk to you about feedback. Feedback on your productions, your mixes, whatever it is you're seeking feedback on. I'm going to talk in a minute or two about how I think you should get feedback and where you should get it from. But let's talk about where you're probably getting it from right now. Why it's maybe not such a good idea. One of the bitches of life, really, is that whenever you're pursuing an activity, in general, you're going to find yourself connected with and running with people who are about on a par with you in terms of your skill levels. So the benefit of that is that you get to learn together. You get to make the same mistakes around the same time, or you make complementary mistakes and you learn things and you teach each other and you sort of lift each other up as you go along. The downside of that is that when you want to get a little bit of a mirror happening and be like, how does my shit look? How does it sound? How's this working? How's it landing? The only people you generally have meaningful access to are people who are about on your skill level, or they're just random people. Who knows what their skill level is? That's a whole other topic, right? But let's just assume for a minute. Let's assume that they are actually audio engineers and that they have at least as much skin in the game as you do, and their skills are somewhere on par with yours. I'm not here to tell anybody or advise anybody against soliciting that kind of feedback, although I actually kind of am. Here's the thing. When you're going for feedback from people, the worst thing that you can ask somebody is, how does my mix sound? And that's probably the thing that most people are out there asking. So that's number one. I think it's a mistake to ask, how does my mix sound? Because let's be honest here, aside from you, me, and like 12 other internet nerds that you're going to come across in your days, nobody fucking cares about how a mix sounds. And really, the mix engineers that I know that are doing this on a high level, they don't care how a mix sounds. You would actually be shocked at how many of these high-level mix engineers are completely non-technical. They have no idea what an attack or a release on a compressor actually do. They have no idea how an equalizer works, or what their favorite frequencies are, or what Q means. Anyway, back to the matter at hand. How does my mix sound? Wrong question. What you want to be asking is, how does this song grab you? I mean, that's your job as a mix engineer, is to get that song to grab some part of the listener. Maybe you want it to grab their cojones, maybe the heart, maybe it's super cerebral, some combination of all the above, but you want it to grab them. And the body is the key to that. So here's what you want to do instead of getting onto the internet and asking random people how your mix sounds. Find a human being in person that you know. Ideally, they're not a mix engineer. Ideally, they're not a musician. They're just a music lover. Don't be bringing in somebody who just doesn't listen to music or doesn't like music, because you need somebody who responds to this art form. What I suggest you do is you invite the person in on this basis. I'm working on something. I would love to just see how it lands with you. I'd love to see how it grabs you or not, right? Give them some kind of an out. Bring them into your studio. Make sure everything's all set to go. Have the volume loud enough that they can feel it in their body, but not so loud that they have to yell at you to talk. Not that they're going to talk, but my experience with most people is they don't like music crushingly loud. But you also don't want to make it so quiet that they have to reach for it or lean in to hear it. Because music, at its best, I think music is a felt experience. Felt viscerally in the body, felt in the heart, and it helps to have the sound waves kind of hitting the body a little bit. When you get them in, sit them down in the sweet spot. And here's what you're not going to frickin' do. You're not going to sit them down and proceed to spew forth some lengthy narrative disclaiming all the reasons why they might not like, or why the thing has some shortcomings, or you're not going to tell them it's a work in progress, or I'm only halfway done, or this is temporary bass, or this. None of that crap. Tell them nothing. Let the work stand on its own merits. If you can't do that, you shouldn't be having anybody in to listen to this right now. That said, sit the person down. Here's what you're not going to do is you're not going to sidle on up next to them and crush on into their space so that you can hear it in the sweet spot too and everything. Quite the opposite. What you want to do is you want to pull back, get out of their physical space. You want a minimum of 18 inches. Preferably you go back there into that corner of the room. You don't want them feeling you. You definitely don't want them feeling your gaze burning a hole in the back of their skull. And don't stare at them, right? What you want to do is just kind of take in the room, take in the sound, listen to your own work while they're listening to it. Be an active participant here. But also, I want you to take in their body from tip to tail, all of it. And you're going to look for two pieces of critical information. You're going to look for when some part of their body starts moving. And then even more critically, you're going to look for when it stops moving. And it will stop moving. Unless you've knocked it out of the park or you have somebody who just has no filters and loves everything that everybody does, some part of them is going to start moving. Maybe their toe's going to start tapping, or their knee's going to bounce up and down like they're nervous, but they're into it, or their head's going to just bob it. Whatever their thing is, that's good information. If it doesn't start moving right out of the gate, you got a problem, because you want you want something to happen right out of the gate. Even though they're not, right? You want to get their attention as soon as the downbeat starts on the song. That's the dream. And then you got to hold it. So note when their body starts moving, and then really note when you lose them. That's critical information, because it will tell you when the production, when the story, when the narrative that you've constructed for this piece of music just fell off a cliff. Their attention weakened to the point where their thoughts could go elsewhere, or they just weren't feeling it. They heard something they didn't like. It's either an active or a passive kind of checking out of the experience. Note that. And then if you're lucky, they'll check back in at some point. You'll grab them again. Note that too. Note these things. Note where this happens. My guess is if you know where it happens, you'll kind of understand why. And that brings us to my final point here on what you're doing, which is when all is said and done and you hit stop, thank the person for their time. I wouldn't even ask them for any more, because here's what I experience. And I think if you're tuned in the right ways, this will happen to you too. Number one, you'll be actively listening. You will hear it through their ears. Things that you completely ignored or that you didn't think were important, suddenly, you realize, why did I hit that note that way? Or, I better tune that. Or, I should back that off right there. That's just a little aggressive. Or, you know what? I can't hear that. I thought that was really loud, but it turns out it's just like mush. Push it harder. Those kind of notes will settle in as you hear it through their ears. It's the most amazing thing. My experience, when I have somebody in who's detached, they're detached from me, they're detached from the production, they got no preamble, they come in. Usually what happens is in the first 30 to 60 seconds, I have all the information I need, and I can't wait for this to be over to get them the frick out so I can get back to work. Maybe that'll happen for you, maybe it won't. But if you do this enough times, I think it will. This is exactly the kind of feedback that you actually want. You want to see how the production lands on a real, live human body in real time. Doesn't have to be in your studio either. Could be in a car, could be in the living room. That's all good. You'll get the same kind of information. But the point is, you want a real person there. You don't want to be up in their space. You want to be watching their body. You want to know when it grabs them. You want to know when it loses them. And you want to hear the stuff through their ears so that you can take notes on the kinds of things that you were overlooking or the kinds of stuff that you were over-focusing on and it turns out it's not that important. All this stuff. Amazing information, and it couldn't happen without the benefit of a living, breathing sack of a human being in your presence. That's what I got. Or you can keep asking people randomly on the internet, and good luck with all of that. What are you going to do? We do the best that we can do. I hope this was in some way helpful to you. Thank you for listening to me ramble yet again. Gregory Scott, Kush After Hours. Talk soon.